Check one, two. Check one, two. Check one, two. Check. Check one, two. Check one, two. Check one, two. Check one, two. Check. Check. Fast. It's not there. That's what you want to do. We don't know if you mean
You're my brother. It's your brother. Yeah, you're all lying. Winnipeg. Los Purihuema en la Tauro, ¿verdad? Deja tanta ventadita. Pero, en la Tauro. Well,
There you go. Now that's how you know. Yeah.
And they send the pipe over here, and they send it over here. But I'm pretty sure most of it, and the children's comments from there.
Ahono kumagante kahkio itamskat na samina miasin kitsipa iwi katos siboma iska no haya iska go tahomaka tasikia sampo ka small saiski tagi tiboma asutamato Danska di sui sili sila kusum panlo tatos ima no mota kapito pian uktopo ni masmo no mota i pamotala iko maski kayas krisinino kagi hui sili sota uktopo apoi iska omina musikano one man kagi small skima stegi we sit liko mota yasin takoski uma yassa tsoma molto ma uma no si lo sa New York sa a sei tko asnano ma a tko un stegi we di sita rakano di sugi we ko taksio sa we ti si tranano de Roma sesaya kad smo sad name Sharon Takatoskia Nancy Mispay Nancy Swaskoito Taki de Roma Sutamaton de Kise wa Umarano am Skotja Segan e Wasada mina Maskoti se minuti manawansi ti Kise mina wasni ti Sundi Asioti e to se e Roma guys, we talk so much. I'm back to Swindon. Wa kumagay no ko kaya. Which is New York. Kaya si Sibami, machita. Igual sa tanta tutuwe. Kaya talk so much. Oh, cheese. Steve. Fancy Alexander, na. Igual ay ano mas Tihiwan. Igual ay ito hasta magi. Igual man maya. Kaya talk so much. Tantos fatos, isso acabou de estar com mais matou. E então, cara, tá, assim se vai. datos ginagawa. Mga mayo, nanto kay sabi mo to as ito mga wapsuya. Sema ginagagita, o sema sa mo at sa kaya mas kaya. Diba, ibisita ma, ibong kang kuisip-singin. Doon suka mo isama. Diba, kaso mustago no ya huwag mau taksi. Kui lagi nama sipa na suniaw sani wai suka po. Maka wapa iba no kaya. Ma mix ka ito damo as ito mau. Usama se yuji nyo musumpan daw. Konta, kui silik mo ma. Malapulay sinom kasi kita. Good morning, everybody. You all missed out on a very nice evening. Those of you that left early, they had a band here. We listened to some good music. We had Darcy and his gang. That's what that's
Darcy and the D's.
Darcy and the D's. Oh, this was that. It was pretty good, and we had Edmund here too. He was singing songs in Cree, very beautiful. We even had my co-chair here and his boss. They sang about 3 numbers. And, oh, that was something to see that. Yeah. But nevertheless, this morning we don't have a lot to cover, but some very important issues. Like, for example, we're going to be very brief, Sharon and I. We're going to tell you a little bit about the place we work at, out of Edmonton, the 326 office. We're going to talk a little bit about what the treaty agenda over there in that part of the country is. It is all Treaty 6. And then we're going to go into the treaty alliances. I believe Sturgeon Lake is here, Sturgeon Lake, Alberta. And my brother AJ here was telling me about a treaty meeting he went to in Sturgeon Lake, because he's from Sturgeon Lake too. Sturgeon Lake on the far east side of Treaty 6. So my brother here, he's an East Indian. But he said he really enjoyed himself. They were very good hosts, and there was a lot going on, he said. So he must really enjoyed himself for him to say that, but he'll talk a little bit about that, I'm sure. So that's what we have for this morning. And also maybe some directives, because this is not a FSI or AFN or any other kind of a meeting. It's a treaty gathering. We have our own way of empowering our technical people, the workers, the legal team that you saw yesterday. We have our own way of giving them directives, because we know we all have experience with resolutions. There's probably thousands of resolutions that have been passed, and they're just gathering dust somewhere. But when you give a directive in this kind of a setting, and you put a time frame on it, you make sure that you get the work done. Maybe a couple of things that we'll talk a little bit about is, I know it's 3 years away, but preparing for the 150th anniversary of this place here, and also Fort Carlton just over to the, along the river, a little further east. And we have plans, we have ideas. We're just having an informal discussion here this morning with Okamau and with Scorpio still for 86. And so it's not too early to start talking about that. And things are in motion already for treaties 1 to 11 for next year. So some of the developments that we'll share with you is that the planning is going to start right away, immediately. And we're just thinking about the treaty site in Cold Lake Treaty Grounds. You might have to do a little work because you're going to need a big space that's pretty level. Probably going to need a big top twice the size of this one. You can find one. And maybe a few other tents for elders, for breakout sessions, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of planning. But fundraising can also begin because nobody has to do this on their own. There's all kinds of people that are stealing resources right from under our noses, our land. The least they could do is give something back so that people can do something good for all of us regarding the treaty. If it wasn't for the treaty, they wouldn't be, so rich. Those skyscrapers in Calgary and Houston, Texas, I believe, and other places. So I'm just sort of making these comments informally, but I'm going to ask organizer here, Bert, if he's going to start us off in a good way. I know we already had the pipe ceremony, which is good, but not everybody was there. So regular practice is to ask one of the elders to open the morning for us in a good way so that our minds can be focused. We can have a good meeting. We can take some good words home to our people. Simon, Bias, porque estamos a el siniblo capios, muchísimo a Mamam skuti apota, iksipa anoksuota. Italaksi sigifoma, iwe kawi pasmonaman, simak nigan kadismon, nigan optimaga, uspagan nigan, nasusuta, tak iksipa ao kakmi tahangsi iteno. Aha, qui discussavano di te, qua io ho isnahita mi that's awake magari when you women minanto. It's up to you. You don't have to stand up, but if you wish to, it's up to you. I think we're all residential schooled out. Most of us that are survivors. We're on our knees, getting up, sitting down, all of that. That's where that came from. Oh, son, sorry. Hey, thank you. Thank you very much. And stay away. If me tutis moya, ipagis ay tatamin.
Coming down with a cold.
Oh no,
Don't sit too close to
rapper.
So, to get started, I'm gonna ask my co-chair to make a few comments, and then we'll get right into the agenda, and we're not gonna keep you too long today.
Just walk. Anuakumadantik, my friends and relatives. My name is AJ. You know that I was born December 24th, 11:45 p.m. Yes, Christmas Eve, December 24th. And so people called me AJ, and later on they found out because I was born so close to Christmas, my actual name, they turned out to be almost Jesus. There.
Don't lie.
Actually, I'm Alan Joe, but my political friends got smart. They looked at my birth date, and the AJ stands for almost Jesus. And then my enemies called me almost Judas.
Oh my God, you're worse.
I want to say, what a wonderful time here again to come to this territory. As my brother was saying, this is holy ground, sacred ground. And I've been here a number of years now, maybe 35 years or something. And we've been here, and it's always been a refreshing place to come, where our old people, prior to treaty, used to gather in this area preparing their food for the winter. This is where they gathered. Families used to come and gather here by canoe or by horses, by wagon. They used to gather here and come and make their winter supply of pemmican from buffalo and from other animals. This is where they gathered. So this has been, not only is it just a treaty grounds now, but prior to that, it used to be Nakskatuin. It used to be where we met, where they met. So naturally, when the commissioner wanted to have a session with the First Nations when he was talking treaty, uh, he found out that yes, there is a place called Nagiskatu, Waskaikansi, and so he naturally chose this place to be the proposed treaty signing area. It said, in the Naskumanan Magagis Mamam, treaty was started in Fort Carlton. It was started. Ewan Mate, Ehumiran Mete Kaisika, the Behunani, where they went and waited. They waited over there for each other to come from different camps, different territories, and then they used to wait for each other, and then they gathered there, and from what I heard, they had Sundance, a late Sundance there at Fort Carlton, Behunani, and that's a crossing, the river crossing of the Saskatchewan River in Duck Lake territory. So, Eguminan Nagiskato and Quito, Behunani, Nagiskato. So that's where my area of responsibility is as the Scottville, I'm a Fort Carlton Scottville, and I've been there for a number of years. I know we started making feasts and gatherings there in 1994. Me and the wife, and we're still there. We did something again this summer over there, feast. We made a memorial feast for, I've noticed in the last number of years, we've lost a lot of elders, particularly elders that worked with us in the treaty area. And not only in Fort Carlton, but also here and other treaty areas. There were 18 different signing sites of Treaty 6, and yes, we've lost our elders, the leaders of our elders. I know Stan Fuller, who was a white man who really supported this movement with his group out of Saskatoon and Unity territory there. They used to bring 150 people to our gatherings. And then he passed away. And part of the ceremony that we had in Beardy's, at the Beardy's powwow this year, was one of them was Stan Fuller. The last pipe ceremony that we had at Fort Carlton 3 or 4 years ago, we had 2 white men and 2 Indians, and a white woman and an Indian woman sitting at the pipe ceremony on the 4 posts, lifting flags. One of them was Stan Fuller and his buddy Anus. And then we also had Drever. Drever was there. He's not with us anymore. And Eric Caduceus. And the wife, my wife, and the lady Karen, they called her. They sat on those posts. That's the way the treaty was sat on many generations ago, 147 years ago. The white man sat at that pipe ceremony. And in many territories, they had a Bible sitting at the pipe ceremony too. So I thought maybe I'd mention that in my we're still proceeding. We're approaching 150 years of treaty making. Yes, a lot of our treaty making stories are we're finding out that a lot of work that was agreed to at treaty time was not followed up. But on the other hand, there are statements from our elders, and in a spiritual way, they said no two-legged individual will break the treaty. No. And they also said at treaty time here, when it started in Fort Carlton and concluded here at Treaty 6, that's the highlights of this gathering here in Fort Pitt was they used the spirit tent. They used the spirit tent to get the understandings they had understood on treaty. So this was a place where major understandings were accepted. One of them was the medicine chest. Medicine. This was where it happened. And the wording, as long as the sun shines, grass grows, and the rivers flow, was established here. It wasn't established someplace else. It was here. And how that became an establishment was our spirit world, in our discussions with them and in our communication with them, told us we were the ones, the water spoke. We were the ones that told you if you're going to make this treaty a forever truth and a forever plan. If we're going to have this forever, you use us. Use me, the sun, and we will shine on you and will provide the heat for you. And then Thunderbird, use me, the water. You won't live without water. And then the wind, use me. You will not live without oxygen. Use me. Apachihina. And what the Northern Spirit said, use me because you need food to stay alive. So all of us, if one of us is absent, from this treaty making. Use us. For as long as we are here, your treaty will be alive, and you will be alive. Kapmats. Kahkyoni. The directions on treaty are all individually, we have to have them if we're going to stay alive, and if treaty's going to be alive. That's what I heard here from this territory. I thought maybe I would mention those and why yes, the treaty is not very well adopted by the partner that we made treaty with, but he's making the mistake for himself. We are still here, and we are forever related to this land. We are family to this land, and nothing is going to dissolve that family relationship we have with Mother Earth and everything that grows. The sun, the thunderbird, the wind, the northern spirit. Nothing can separate us from that. We're here forever. We're unique, we're special people, and we're blessed people. So I want to say that as a good morning to you, my friends and relatives. Hi, hi.
Hi, hi. It's Kamachi Tanano. I want to ask Sharon to come up. This summer was very busy for both of us. She was doing a lot of work in different areas. And I think she spent more time at the office this summer than I did. I was, first of all, I went to the Paulette commemoration, the 50th year. Went up there. Then I went to Winnipeg, treaties 1 to 11. And then I went to the National Cree Gathering. And then I took a few days off. And then when I got back, I went to a place called Shiprock, New Mexico, to a Right to Food conference, a corn conference. And I brought a message back from there. We adopted a declaration, and I was hoping that we could have shared it with you here today, but it wasn't done until I left Edmonton the other day. So I couldn't make a copy, and I sent it to Janice. I don't know if she had a chance to make a copy. Not here. But of course, I do have it on my phone. And maybe before we conclude, I want to read it to you. If you like it, I'll send it out to everybody. And I'd like to get it formally adopted by this assembly, because when we went through the pandemic here, COVID, when it hit, it really hit home to a lot of us. We were stuck at home, very hard in some cases for people to get good, healthy food. Thankful to our health centers that they stepped in, and different ones that were put in place just for that purpose, to take food out to our elders. And some of us were lucky, we were blessed with bison, buffalo, and the nations were able to share some of that good, healthy food with the elders and with people that are poor, don't have a big income, because we know that the price of food is really going through the roof. And pretty soon, a lot of our people on fixed incomes, limited amount of resources, are not going to be able to eat, to afford the prices at the grocery stores. So we have to take a look at what can we do, what our grandparents and parents used to do. They had gardens. They were pretty well self-sufficient. They set snares, traps. They hunted more. That's something that we have to be thinking about. And that's kind of the message I brought back from this Right to Food conference. And one other thing too is that I'm on the board of directors of an organization called International Indian Treaty Council. And we do a lot of work internationally. Many years ago, Sharon and I used to help Treaty Council. They were just starting out too. So many of the documents in the early days, we helped draft those documents. And that's all we did most of the time is we're the ones that did the drafting, and then they presented it, and they kind of took the credit for a lot of work that we did. But that's a little bit of history, and so I sit as president of the International Indian Treaty Council, and I was hoping, if it's okay with the people, I'll read the declaration out to you later on after we do the protocol with Sturgeon Lake, the treaty alliances, and we get to the part about directives. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that then. And there's some other work that needs to happen soon. And Vern and I have been talking about this, and it's 3 years away, but it's never too early to start the planning for the 150 years. So I just wanted to make these few comments, and I'll turn it over to Sharon to tell us a little bit about her work. We were talking about her work this morning. Many of our artifacts are in different museums, different facilities around the world. And thanks to the grant that she got, she was able to go do some research in England at the archives and the library, right? So she'll tell us a little bit about that. I'll turn it over to Sharon. Sharon?
Thank you, Robbie. I'm going to tell you a story about Ron and I, the late Sam Holden and late Ed Bernstein. We went to Geneva in 1981, and there was a big meeting there, and they said that we should bring documents about what's going on in the treaty area. So we prepared this document. And then at that time, there was no photocopying machine, there was no computers, there was nothing like the technology, no cell phones, nothing like that. So they said you have to bring all the copies. So we brought 100 copies, which was expensive to even make 100 copies. So we had 100 copies, but we distributed it. Paper is really heavy, so we distributed it in our four of us had 4 bags. We put each had some documents in our bag, so we went to Geneva like that. And they had booked us at this hotel. I'm more like a student residence, I think. Anyway, they had us in this place. It was really small rooms, so I would share the room because if you were going to get dressed, one person had to lay down, a person could get up and get dressed, and you lay down to bed. Anyway, it's crazy. But anyway, we had these books, we had all these documents in our bags. So we registered, we go over, there's an elevator, tells us an elevator. I think the men were on the 5th floor and I was on the 3rd floor, or something like that. Anyway, so we had these bags that were really heavy. So we go to the elevator, press the button, nothing happens. We press the button again, nothing happens. So we go, oh no, the elevator's broken. What are we gonna do now? We've got these bags, all this paper, we can't walk up all these stairs with these bags. So we're talking about maybe we should just take out what we need tonight, clothes and toothbrush, whatever we need, and then we'll just walk up to our rooms, and then we'll leave the bags here in storage, and then so we have these papers, we can take them tomorrow to the United Nations meeting. So we're standing there talking like that, and this fellow comes along, pardon moi. In French, he says, excuse me. So he walks over to the elevator, presses that button, and we're all standing there looking at him. Presses the button, he opens the door, gets in, and the elevator goes up. We were waiting for the door to slide open, like, you know, in an elevator, the only ones we ever seen was sliding open. This one opened like a door. This guy walks, got the elevator right up. We all looked at each other, and the late Sam Bull said to us, because we were really young that time, he says to us, "Don't you guys ever talk about that." Okay. So I'm telling on us what kind of work we did. What happened was, you know, our people, we always talk about what happened with the treaty. There's all kinds of questions we are asking ourselves about what the British were thinking, what was happening, and all this sort of stuff. People at all the meetings always talk about that. So I found out that the British Library, which is in London, has what they call an independent scholar. You can apply for an independent scholarship to go and study in the British Library. And so I made the application and I got the money to go to London to work in the library for 1 month, and they pay for everything, like accommodation, travel, meals, all that sort of stuff. So I had the money, and that was in November of 2019. And the money was available on May the 1st, 2020. But then, you know, COVID hit. And so they got a hold of me, they sent me an email and said, you know, the library's closed because of COVID, so don't come now. Because once you activate it, once you say that you're gonna go, you have to use it within 1 year. And you have to spend 1 month in the library, that's part of the condition. So I actually never activated it until last May. And I didn't go until October, and it was in the library, at the British Library. And I was researching, and I found, like I talked a little bit yesterday, I said that I came across a document where they were trying to get hold of our trust accounts. Canada was trying to get a hold of our trust accounts. And I came across the legal paper that said that they didn't trust Canada to transfer those trust accounts to Canada, and they remained imperial trust accounts. So those are the trust accounts that Canada managed to get their hands on in 2012, which they would never, that's unfinished treaty business as far as I'm concerned. But the other document I came across, and I have a copy of it, it says that the Crown does not own our land. Why doesn't the Crown own our land? Because we are allied to the Crown. Think about it. We are allied to the Crown. That's what the Treaty of Peace and Friendship is. Treaty of Alliance. So because we're allied to the Crown doesn't assert underlying title. That's Canada that says that. Canada says that this Crown land. The Crown never said that. The Crown never did that. So what basically Canada has been lying to us all these years, saying that the Crown has underlying title, but they don't. And it's in a legal opinion that was written for the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in London. So this is the kind of research I was doing. But when I was there at the library, I was talking to one of the people that works in the library, asked me what I was doing. So I told him I was looking at, you know, historical documents related to the history of, you know, treaty making with our people in what is now called British North America. And he said to me, have you ever heard of the Winston Churchill Fellowship? And I said, no. And he's the former Prime Minister of Great Britain. He said, yeah. He created a fellowship to allow people from the Commonwealth to apply for monies to do work in London at the National Archives, working on an issue that relates to the Commonwealth and Britain. And so I said, okay. So I applied for monies, and I got monies from the Winston Churchill Fellowship to do work. So I was in London from the beginning of October till more or less the end of November. And then I came back, and then I went back into the United States of China, and I was at the British archives, which are out in Richmond. They're not in London, but they're out in Richmond. So I was in the National Archives, and I was looking at stuff related to the who drafted the Royal Proclamation of 1763. Was a question that always, like, people would keep asking questions like that, and I thought, okay, let me try to find out the answer. So I started looking, and I found out that it was done by two people. One is called Lord Bute, B-U-T-E, is a Scottish person, and another one called the Earl of Urmont, which is E-G-R-E-T. Those two men advising King George III, they actually drafted the Royal Proclamation in 1763. But Lord Bute, I read his diaries, and in there he talks about in 1852 or 42, there were 9 Indian men and a woman that came to London, and they stayed at his house. And he has a house in London that's still there. The family still owns it. It's called Kentwood, and it's in Hampstead Heath. I went over there and looked at it. It's a big, huge house. Anyway, he had these Indians staying with them, and he writes in his diary about they were going over to meet with King George II almost daily, but they were living in his house, and they were talking about who they were and what they were. But he was talking about how the king was talking about him being a Christian, and they said that they were not Christians. They had their own way of doing things and their own spirituality and all this sort of stuff, and that their people couldn't live in their territory, but they have to live there in peace and friendship, which was really an important component of what was written in the Royal Proclamation. So these 9, they said there was 9 Indian men and a woman. They kept saying 9 Indian men and a woman. Anyway, he's saying that they built fires in his backyard and prepared food. So they were making feasts in his backyard, which I thought was really interesting. He wrote it all down in his diary. But he's the one, him and the Earl of Urmont is the one that drafted the Royal Proclamation. Because if you read the Royal Proclamation and you read what he wrote in his diaries, he says that peace and friendship is the most important thing of the British Crown in relation to the Indians. And that these are nations of peoples with their own laws and understandings, including their own spiritual beliefs. He wrote that in his diary. So they already knew that there's our own spiritual beliefs. So in the Royal Proclamation, it says that the subjects of the crown cannot come into our territory without an agreement or a treaty. If they're in our territory and there's no treaty or agreement, the crown has an obligation to remove them. They're squatters. But the third more important thing in the Royal Proclamation is what it says. It says that the crown may want to enter into treaty, but only if the Indians so desire. So it was really up to us whether or not the treaty was made. And that's why it's so important to be here, because, see, the crown came to us. They came here. We didn't go to England to make treaty, because they needed the treaty more than we needed it. And we have to see it that way. That's how come they came here, like this site. The crown representative came here to make the treaty, which is really the significance of the treaty, because when they entered into treaty, they used our laws to enter into the treaty, which is also the understanding of Lord Bute that we had our own legal system. So this is the research I was doing because our people have a lot of questions, and they keep asking them at the meetings, and I thought, gee, somebody should start working on this. I told that to somebody. I said, somebody should be looking at this stuff. Like, why aren't they looking at that stuff? And they said, well, why don't you? Oh, okay, well, why don't I? So that's what I did. So I didn't get any money from any First Nations or government money from Canada or anything like that to do this research. I did it by applying for this money in England. But the important thing of what I found is that the Crown had an incredible respect for our people. And and you read these documents and you see how much they respected us. Like even the way they wrote that note about Canada wanting to get our trust accounts, the Imperial Trusts,
So,
the way they wrote it, that they did not, the Crown did not trust Canada. They said, we do not trust the Canadians. We don't trust them in relation to the Indians because they will abuse them. They wrote, it's right, you read the document, it's right there in black and white, you know. And so the only thing about doing the research is I needed to get a magnifying glass because they didn't, it was all handwritten stuff, so you need to, like, my mother used to say I had better handwriting, but my handwriting is nothing like their handwriting. It's really bad. Anyway, so that's what I was working on. And I was there until the beginning of March, so in the beginning of August, or January, and I stayed there till the beginning of March. And so trying to answer some of these questions that people are always constantly asking. So I'm writing it down, I'm gonna write it down and publish it in a book, so that everybody can have a copy of it. But I think the important thing, and I just heard Rita say something this morning, reminded me of something I heard in the ceremony. Somebody came into a ceremony and they were really upset about how Canada and the provinces are abusing our treaties. And they were saying that this is not good. They're abusing our treaties and how they abuse them, they're not getting these things right. And in that ceremony, there was a spirit came in there, really loud spirit, really like a big voice came in there. And he said to us, not to worry, that every time those people break the treaty and they go against the treaty, he has a stick and he makes a mark on this big rock. And someday there will be an accounting of those people in relation to what they did to us on the treaty. So we're not to worry about that. We just have to keep going what we agreed that we would do. So we agreed to live in peace and friendship. So it just reminded me of what DJ was saying this morning, that we always have to remember that they put in place something for us. The spirits are taking care of things that we don't have to worry about. So that's what I was told one time. So I just wanted to remind people of what I heard. So what's going on, Ron? Yes, Ron. I go to the Confederacy office. I'm not an employee of the Confederacy. I have I have a what you call that. If they want me to do something, that they ask me to come in and help. So I've been working on helping with treaties. And one of the things that the Confederacy staff have done is that they have really taken on board the fight against the health legislation. And they have really been, they were helped organize and to promote the work in Geneva with the urgent action that was filed by a number of nations. I think 10 or 11 Treaty 6 peoples have signed on to this, what we call an urgent action, that's been filed in Geneva against the legislation. So when Canada was trying to introduce the legislation in 2022, we were able to push it back. And so it was supposed to be filed again this spring, and it was pushed back. And now they're trying to get it done this fall, but constantly pushing back their timelines because there's a lot of pressure on them from Geneva. So when I was there at the beginning of August, and I met with the members of CERD, Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, Canada told them that they were actually engaging Treaty 6 people on the discussion of this legislation, which is a lie. And I said that to the members. I said they're lying. Of course they're lying. But they said, well, that's what they told us. And I said, have you had that in writing? And they said, no, we're given a verbal report. And I said, so for us, it would be good if you asked Canada for a written report as to who they're talking to and what are they saying. But what Canada's doing is that they're using people, like they're talking to supposedly doctors who are descendants of Indians. A lot of them are Native people. They're asking them about whether or not there should be legislation. They're talking to nurses, nursing associations. They're talking to therapists. They're talking to psychiatrists. They're talking to health boards. They're talking to everybody except the rights holders. And that's a problem. Because that's doing away with our treaty by using these people. And then we found out when we were at the Treaty 1 to 11 meeting, Derek Nevenak, who's not even from Treaty 6, I think he's from Treaty 5, I'm not sure. He said he's on the drafting group at AFN to draft the legislation, and I thought, what right do you have? We never even came to people in Treaty 6 and asked them, is it okay for me to work on this? But see, they don't see the treaty right to health. They see it just as another thing that Canada is paying money to them to draft. But that's the problem. And so he's working on the drafting. He's trying to pass resolutions at AFN to support the draft legislation. But what Tina and her group at the Confederacy office are doing is that they have been talking about the treaty right and the spirit and the true spirit and true intent of the treaties, and that you have to think about that. And she was just telling me the other day, I met with her in a little group there on Friday morning, I guess it was, just 2 days ago. I don't know what I'm doing these days. Anyway, I had a meeting with them on Friday morning, and she was telling me that more and more people across the country are actually understanding what she's saying to them, and they're coming around and they're supporting Treaty 6 now. So she just keeps talking and keeps, even though when she first started in the meeting, she was the only one pushing back, because she's the only technician in the room that was saying about treaty, true spirit and true intent of the treaty. So that's actually a pushback. So that's really positive for us to be able to push back, and we have to keep an eye on it, because now Canada's trying to push forward with legislation, so we have to keep an eye on that. But the other thing that the Confederacy worked on, and I drafted some of the papers, is the policing. As I said yesterday, Alberta tried to do this rapid. It was called Rural Alberta Policing Initiative Directive, and they were trying to put provincial peace officers who come into the reserve lands to implement provincial legislation in the reserve lands. The Treaty 6 chiefs opposed that, and they said, no, it's not happening. So they pushed back on that. And so now Canada is trying to draft legislation on policing. AFN is the one that's been has all the monies to draft legislation on policing, which is really dangerous, because what the government is trying to do is federal government, is the jurisdiction of the lands, the reserve lands. Under the Constitution of Canada, their Constitution, 91.4 says Indians and lands reserved for Indians, with a D, not reserved, but reserved. That's lands that we didn't share at the time of the treaty making. That is being protected by the federal government against incursions into our territories. But what Canada is doing is they're opening the door with federal legislation to allow the provinces to come into our territories. So they're trying to pass policing legislation at the federal level, and at the same time, the provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan are talking about a provincial police force. And then that provincial police force will come into our territory, because Canada is trying to open the door. So we have to really keep an eye on that, because if we don't, we're going to find out that the provinces are going to have these peace officers coming into our territory, and they're going to be, implementing it. And I'm saying that this whole thing is a violation of our treaty. Because at the time of treaty making, they've said that these people, the Northwest Mounted Police, they were there to protect us against these white people who were trying to violate the treaty, not to police us, because we had our own shamanists, we had our own policing, but they were supposed to protect us against the white people. I told that to the superintendent of police one time in Edmonton. he phoned one of the chiefs and told him I was swearing at him. And the chief said, what are you swearing at the superintendent of police? I said, I wasn't swearing at him. What did you say to him? And I told him what I told him about the treaty. And he said, oh, he would think I was swearing. I said, well, okay, whatever. But, you know, we have to be really careful. What they're trying to do is the jurisdiction. It's a jurisdictional grab by the provinces. And we always have to remember what the 1969 white paper said. Trudeau, Papa Trudeau, not baby Trudeau, but Papa Trudeau, said that there will only be one service deliverer, and that's the provinces. And so we always have to be aware of what they're doing, because they're always pushing us into the arms of the province. And they have all kinds of ways to do it. So that's, you know, always a constant battle. But the other thing that Ron and I have been working on, and kind of doesn't want to talk about too much, I'm working on a curriculum to teach treaty. And the curriculum to teach treaty has no paper. And I'm going to use tobacco and cloth to teach the treaty to young people with there's no paper. This is kind of an interesting way of approaching it, but anyway, everybody wants to say, well, how are we going to do that? And I said, well, we'll just see how it works. But anyway, Ron and I have been talking about it for some time. We have to teach them how to do that. And then, so that's one of the things I was working on and working on. Okay. We don't want to talk about Franklin.
Hey, thank you, Sharon. We won't take a lot more of your time, but another thing that we're working on is Eric will remember this when we first established Confederacy back in 1993, over 30 years ago now. We started what you call a bilateral treaty process. So it worked really well until about 1999 when we presented a joint report, and we had good people at the table. Many elders that were there are no longer with us, many of the leaders. And that time, the Minister of Indian Affairs was Nault, was a minister. So it was a document that we worked on together with the federal team, our elders, our leaders. We presented it to the government. Minister Nault refused to sign it, even though the federal rep agreed to it. He signed it. And the spokesperson of the day at the Confederacy also signed it. Presented it to Nault. He wouldn't sign it. So the chiefs walked away from the table. They said, go ahead and do the work you have to do. When you're ready, we'll come back to the table. So it was 26 years approximately. We've been going ahead and doing elders interviews, doing research like what Sharon is doing, some locally here. You all know that Lesser Slave Lake Regional Indian Council has the old Indian Association files. They have those over there in Slave Lake. So we did some research in there on that part. We have to do more. So we're continuing the work. what the elders, the leaders have told us. And over the years, first one thing fell off the table, then the other thing. Until Harper came along and he almost totally killed the table. But we treaded water. We're the only treaty bilateral table in the whole country, the original. So sometimes we had barely to survive, but we kept treading water. And then after COVID, we got a little bit more resources, so we could do work and get Sharon to do some of the work. And now the chiefs have decided to come back to the table. Let's make it a true treaty bilateral table. Because from 1999 to 2023, a lot of things have changed. There's a lot more understanding. And you know what? The treaty partners, they know just as much as we know about the undertakings, but they just don't want to agree with it. To them, it would be akin to capitulation. Like one thing Sharon talked about is the trust monies. If they were to pay us back all the trust monies that they stole from us, this country would go bankrupt. They owe us trillions of dollars. The money that they were supposed to put back after they took the money in 1912 because Canada was in a lot of financial trouble. And it was Indian people, our Indian monies that saved this country. Did we ever get any thanks? No. They never even put the money back like they promised they were going to. They made that promise to Privy Council, right? Yeah. So those kind of things. So now we're working with young people at the Confederacy office, and their understanding of the treaty is really lacking. So we're trying our best to teach them. I encourage them to learn the language too. And I do that to all the young people that sometimes I'm asked to go to schools and talk about the work that we're doing, to churches, the community leagues, municipalities. And so I always try to encourage the young people. This language, nihio unoma, it's in us. And our young people are very, very smart. They could learn it. I encourage them, I tell them, learn one word a day, one conversation a week. You know, within a few months, you'll be able to carry on a conversation. So when I go to work at the office and I talk to the young people, I talk to them in Cree. Sometimes they're looking at me, but they're starting to understand a little bit more. And I always start, whatever I do, I started with our language. That's the way I was taught by the elders. My late brother Al, who just passed away last year, he was a firm believer in that. If he was here, he would speak to you in the Cree language first. And he really stuck to that. And when his son, my nephew, got in as chief in April, that's one of the things that I told him. We'll support you, but the language is important. We can't have leaders that aren't making an effort to learn the language. I think we're guilty. Way back in the 70s, we had a chief that did not speak Cree. I think she was one of the first woman chiefs in the country, and she did not speak Cree at all. She was an old lady. I have a good story about her, but some other time. She was a Métis woman that married one of the members. Ray knows late Percy Pruden. He was a Makokis, and it was his wife that became chief. So I digress, but just saying what we're trying our best to do at the Confederacy. Sometimes it's very frustrating. Sometimes I feel like just walking away. But if I do that, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm the last of the founding members that's there right now. And even though sometimes I get frustrated, I want to hang in there. That's why I depend a lot on prayers and coming to meetings like this here. It's very encouraging. So I don't want to take a lot more of your time, but we do a lot of work internationally. And I was trying to find the declaration. I can't find it. I sent it to Janice, and I don't know what I did with it. I hope I didn't delete it, but maybe I'll see if she can send it back to me. And if we get a chance here before we break, I want to read it to you. Got a lot of good stuff in there, what we can do to address an urgent need, because there is another pandemic coming, they say, in 2025. I don't know what it's going to be. Maybe it's something that Monial is going to make up. It came from China this last time, but who knows that for sure. The one young man that was talking yesterday, he said COVID was a hoax. It was not. I lost my father. I lost many people to COVID. So it was not a hoax. And many of us, all of us, were touched by it. So there's others coming. So we have to be prepared. We got to know what to do when we can go nowhere, when we can't afford to go to the grocery store. We have to start some serious planning. So I don't want to take a lot more of your time, but we are asking for a right to food conference. Again, we had one years ago in Beaver Lake, and we want to ask for a right to food conference to come to Treaty 6 territory again. Not sure where it'll be, probably somewhere central, and because we do have a lot of recourse, Piano, we still have some hunting territory, we still have some, but if we don't put the brakes on development, we're going to have nothing left. They don't care about the habitat, the destruction that they're doing to because they're our relatives, the four-legged. That's what the elders say. They have to live somewhere too. But when all this equipment, tree farmers, great big equipment they use in the oil sands, and you guys know what it's about. You've been out there, and I'll close with this. I want to share with you a story. One time we came to a meeting in Onion Lake, and so my wife and I were going back to Coal Lake, and we took a wrong turn. There was a bridge that was out on that road to Tullaby Lake. There was a bridge that was out there. I think they were putting a culvert. So we had to detour. So we went on this road going north, and we got lost. We ended up in this oil field. You would be surprised. You wouldn't believe how much oil activity is out there in supposedly farming country. Like if you were going to go on the main road, back and forth, you'd never see that. So there was probably a reason why we got lost. We saw all that work that's happening out there. And it's all over. It's all over this part of the country, wherever there's oil sands. Sometimes it's too deep for them to dig it out, but they use the injection process. They still go ahead. They do fracking. They do all these things that are affecting our environment, and it's going to affect our water. It is. I hope we don't see it, but if we don't put the brakes on development here, sustainable development, if we don't insist on that, the days are numbered where we'll be able to use our water. I travel sometimes. I went to Fort Berthold, Newtown, North Dakota, and I went to visit an adopted brother. And you should see that place. It's unreal. It's not like the way I used to remember it. At night, it's just all lit up. The flares are all over. If it was in Moniana, they wouldn't allow those flares. But it's Indian land, so they just do whatever they want. So I was talking to my adopted brothers. They get a dividend check every month. I don't think anybody has to work. They get a dividend check every month. So I asked him, well, how's it going? He said, well, brother, it's not worth it. He said, we can't even drink our water. So if you go to Newtown, don't drink the water. Yeah, don't drink the water. You drink bottled water. But that's the point that they've gotten to. Sure, they have a lot of money, but money can't buy you that good health, that good clean water brings. So I know I just rambled on too much, but thank you for listening to Sharon and I. There's a lot more we could talk about. We're going to be having all Chiefs Assembly in a couple of weeks. Yeah, so in about a week and a half. So there's going to be a lot of issues, hopefully, that are going to be talked about there, including what Sharon shared with you, health, policing, all of those kind of things. So, except the map. Hi. I know it's almost noon, but I want to ask Ogma Lewis to come up. Let's give Sharon a round of applause. Thank you so much. I'll ask Ogma Lewis to come up, and I'll turn it over to you, AJ. You can take us through this next part. No, AJ. He got busy, I guess. So anyway, without any further delay, I'll turn it over to Ogma Lewis, and I believe the Sturgeon Lake people are here, counselors, the state for today here, Tracy McLean and Rosalind Goodswimmer, if you want to come on up and join us. Ogma.
Thank you, Ron. We heard a lot of good info, what's happening there. In terms of research, a lot of things are being uncovered that we can take to our advantage. Now, this just to kind of introduce what has been happening from time way back. If you don't know, nations have been making their own treaties back, yeah. With all that work that we've done in Onion Lake, a lot of resources and time has been spent. And we have a lot that we can offer in terms of helping. We had a lot of invitations
to make presentations on the process that we're taking. We went all the way up north to Treaty 8 territory, peace country, for one thing, and all the way to Ontario. But like I was saying, the new nations have been hearing what the work that we're doing along it, and they were interested, getting in more info, wanting to work with us. We didn't go to these nations, me and Anna, asking them to come and join us. No, we didn't do that. This is free will on the part of nations. So far, we had signed alliances with, first of all, in 7-8, at the time of Eddie McComas was chief at the time, quite a few years back. And another nation that came forward was Kihiwin. Kihiwin signed an alliance. But I'd like to back up a bit with this, along this protocol with Mitsama. Like we have the fight ceremonies, the two nations get together in the ceremony, and then we sign that alliance. Well, but this alliance represents the unity that is needed to fight against government. So the other nation that came forward was Ochisme. And we did that ceremony in Jasper. And that wasn't too long ago. And when I was in Winnipeg, Sturgeon Lake, we saw KGL, and that was a time. Yeah. And they approached our staff and see if we can maybe meet with on the lake. He's showing an interest of signing another alliance. So kung mo may plan, if there's no financial commitment involved, Yamamoto-skill. The foundation to this common school on Tapon is our ceremonies. So this alliance has a lot to do with that allegiance, starting with ceremony, Kamamoto-ski. That's kind of an oath pascutitory that you're going to be working with for your people for the right purpose that you put to the first place. Today, I was supposed to be the actual day that we did that ceremony. Now, like what I had said the other day, some chiefs want to have some other commitments at the last moment. They cannot change, so therefore their chief cannot be here. But we all these two lady counselors made an effort to be here, which is good. So in one month, I maybe thought that maybe we can open it for questions and answers. We have the time. Now, I'd like to give these ladies an opportunity in terms of what you're expecting with the audience, what they experiencing, and what motivated them to come to our nation for alliance signing. So I'll open the floor. This is more better known.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge Onion Lake peoples and the Chieftain Council and thank them for inviting us here. Our chief, he is actually in Europe. He had planned an anniversary gift with him and his wife, and he's away. However, my colleague and I wanted to make sure that we came and participated based on the invite from Onion Lake Chief and Council. So that's why we are here today. I'd like to acknowledge the elders for the good prayers over the last couple of days. And thank you for allowing us to come and participate and listen to the sessions and to help us with understanding of how Onion Lake does their things. We are, first of all, my name is Tracy McLean. I'm from Sturgeon Lake Nation in Treaty Territory. My background, I am a single mother of 5, have 4 grandchildren, and 30 years. I was a housing director for Sturgeon Lake for 16 years, up until 2018, and I took a break and decided to return to school. So I attended YTC College in Edmonton, or I was in the Bachelor of Governance and Administration program, and I just currently completed it this past June. So I've been newly elected council member for Sturgeon Lake since March 2022. And so one of the things when we met with
Ran out of tissue.
Chief Lewis in Winnipeg, what I did was I know Janice Nikolkis from college, and she was one of my instructors, so I had reached out to her and, was looking for some sort of, help and assistance in helping or maybe even doing presentation for us to work towards independence. Our nation and what we talk about at our table is going independently and working towards going straight to treasury versus going through middlemen such as tribal councils and our treaty organization. So that's kind of where things started. And when we met with Chief Lewis in Winnipeg at the Treaty 1 to 11 gathering, I was really grateful that he agreed to set up a meeting with our leadership and their leadership. So we met in Edmonton in the middle of August. And so we really were intrigued by the work that Onion Lake has done, and with them developing their laws, and it was so amazing. And we understood that it took a lot of years. And so talking with my colleague and with the rest of the chief and council, we would really like to see something, that kind of structure in our community. And this could be a start by agreeing to set up an alliance with Onion Lake, and that's kind of where we started off. And we're a message from my chief was actually to maybe when we do the pipe ceremony and signing, maybe we can invite Onion Lake to come our community in Sturgeon and kind of have that event there. So when our chief gets back, maybe our 2 chiefs can talk on that, and then we can go from there. And we were thinking maybe at the end of October, early November, if that's okay. But with that being said, I just want to pass the mic over to my colleague Rosalind Ditzmer. The other thing is we brought some gifts for Chief Lewis and his council and his couple of workers there, Bird and Renetta. So we just wanted to offer some gifts as part of opening up and building that relationship. But I'll turn over the mic to my colleague Rosalind.
Good morning, everybody. My My name is Rosalind Whitcomer. I'm a counselor from Sturgeon Lake Nation. Newly elected in March of last year. I come from a long line of my grandparents were chiefs, my dad was a counselor, so I grew up learning about the significance of how leadership governs our people. And I've always noticed there's a missing piece when it comes to your traditional ways, because my parents went to residential school and my dad and them were teaching us more right before he passed in 2010. So I started doing a lot of learning and finding out who I was as a Nihil, and doing a lot of research. And Onion Lake always came up on how amazing your structure was and how they centered it on treaties, because treaties is not just a piece of paper. Treaties are who you were before that paper, right? So I wanted to know how can we implement that within our nation, because we're missing that piece, because we think in the Muniao way, right? The Constitution and their laws, their ways of living, but we don't implement ours. And I was in awe of what Ogama Lewis has been able to do within the nation with his elders, and the structures were very, very amazing. Like, we don't have any of that at our nation. We lost that, and we want to bring it back. And my chief and our counselors we've been talking about this for the last year and a half, how to implement that. And it just so happened that Creator put us in the same path, and when we're in Manitoba, and this is the outcome of it. I'm really thankful to be here. I'm grateful to be, but it's been territory and beautiful here. Everybody's very welcoming, and I'm really honored to be here. Thank you to the Onion Lake Chiefing Council for meeting with our Chiefing Council. One of the things is that
There was one lady that was,
I feel that
not today.
it's really important that everything centered around ceremony and about who we are.
Saying quite a few things
I love that. I love that. That's what we're missing with our children. Because in order for our children to fight for our
she would agree
freedom,
with,
we have
and
to
then she
teach
would
them
want
that.
a tangent.
And I sit here and I'm taking notes, I'm watching everything. I was in awe when the director of education came walking with the city walkers from the schools. We don't have that. Can you imagine if everybody had that, and how solidified from being youth and taking that into the future to protect our treaties, to understand them better. And I see that here, and it's beautiful, it's wonderful, and and this alliance that we're creating is going to bridge that gap, because we were always centered into, you stay in your Treaty 8 territory, you stay, like my Muslim, they used to tell me back in the day how he used to horse, my Muslim was the oldest elder when he passed at 93, he used to tell me how they used to horse and travel up all the way through, they'd follow Athabasca, and then they would go down to with his grandparents down to Jasper, where they would go catch freshwater salmon, and then they would bring it for ceremony in Sturgeon Lake, and everybody would come. They used to gather, that kind of made me feel like we were not centered just in one place. We had relationships, we had friendships, we had peace and friendship agreements with all other nations, just like how the treaties were built, right? So it made me start researching where I come from. I found out just 2 years ago that I'm a descendant of the captain who signed our treaty in Sturgeon Lake. That's the pieces we're missing to find out who we really are, and it really makes you understand. And I commend Ogama Lewis and his council and the elders for sharing that. Like, it's beautiful to see, and I'm very, very honored to be here. And thank you for allowing us to speak.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, in a way, you're going to be promoting within your nations who assert their responsibilities we have to take full control though. That's what the removal, that's very important when you talk about sovereignty. I know there's deliberations what sovereignty means, but regardless, we need to, as chief of our nations, that we have to take control over drawing our people, as you know so well. People are going. So, with that, these organizations, I know that they're there for a good reason. Speaking on one, we did a lot of good work. For example, FSIN had did a lot of good work. But to me, they had strayed too far away from what our mandates are in terms of protecting the intermediary. So, yeah, with the authority of our people to a referendum, that's what we had talked about. Officially breaking away from AFN, which we did. And at the time, we didn't really know how to deal with FSIN to a point because we had to kind of look into what are the effects of breaking away. When we are trying to only protect our race, especially the medicine chestnut, and what's happening in terms of legislation, and FSIN is endorsing that legislation. And that's why we have no alternative but to finally decide to break away officially from FSIN to protect our stand, our process. So we know that these are things that we need to really consider. I know there'd be some hard feelings on what I'm saying. They're long-term, I guess, everlasting effects if we don't regain our roles as true nations, the authority, the jurisdiction. Because we need to do that, and we are doing that. We're trying to maintain our jurisdiction. And I can give you a couple of examples on how we were able to get our people off our nation when they came and tried to look into our members' decrease. We told them to get out, and our council members were instrumental at the time, communicating with our lawyer that we are utilizing on the phone. And they told our people to get out. And our lawyer was on the phone with them. And our lawyers, they need to get out. So what happened during the Ibiza film, so they went out, they were escorted out. I mean, it was a few days ago when we heard that some kind of a society, you have no control, you try to come in again. Same thing happened. They told him to get out, and they were really mad. They went to the cops. And the cops escorted this person right to that person individual's face. And our counselors, as they've been able to came on strong and said, no, people, police, you work for us. You're supposed to be protecting us, not them. So at that time, we won also. They went out. So these are things I'm talking about as a true sovereign nation. We need to, make our stand, begin on what the provincial encroachment that's happening now. And we need to stand our ground is what I'm saying. So this is what the alliance will enhance the power. So I'm sort of promoting Ito Women at the same token. encouraging all my fellow
So
students
the old people used to say.
regain that power back. Back to Oviano law. Let the government come to us, Oviano, not the organizations. I say that with respect.
Across the whole country.
Examine of
Everybody's
days
trying
on
to give up.
Maga with the proposed to one
When you
side
the first
we
time I
will
heard you
be,
say that.
This will make you
we
ready.
will be approaching my council
Thank you, baby.
when we can do that, because it's important to do that protocol first. With the right protocol, we do the immediately. That's where we
I remember the
could
first time I heard you say that. I was
The
scared.
next one. Thank you very much.
It scared me. But then you told me a couple of times and I started thinking about it, and now I can see what you're talking about.
Hey, thank you so much. I believe they're going to be giving gifts here, and I just wanted to say to Rosalind, it's good you come over here, you and the counselor. I believe you have relations in Cold Lake First Nations. My wife is one of them, and there's some Cold Lake First Nations members over here.
You better go up and get your handbag. See, I told you.
We lost a historian just a few months ago from Cold Lake First Nations. His name was the late John Janvier. And he's the one who did the family tree and also the lineage, how people are related. And through that, we found out that many of the people from Sturgeon Lake are Soto descent too. They made the journey from the Great Lakes, and that's where they made their home in that territory. And then somewhat further, they went to Blueberry River. So people are related right across the country. And it's good to see this, to witness it. It seemed like the alliances are what's important, because relations are right across the country. A lot of people say that the Greek people came from the east. Not true. Our creation story is right down around Cypress Hills. That's our creation story. And a lot of the recent historians, they didn't go back far enough. So the people that tell us the creation story, they tell us that when our people were created, they went in all directions. Some went east, some went north, south, and west. But we've always been here. So with that, I really want to thank Oma Lewis and the counselors from Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation, Alberta, or West PDA.
Yeah, unless you want me to deliver it myself.
And,
'Cause I could do that.
so let's give them another round of applause.
I don't know how you guys do your protocol when I go on to,
I believe the lunch is here, and I know Scott Lewis will probably give protocol to somebody to
The
wait for the
Lloydminster
lunch.
address is the only one. We have a Lloydminster annually. That's the only one that
We'll have
has
somebody
courier services.
to
That's where you get everything.
say the prayer for lunch.
you can know how to.
We'll get some food and we'll do one.
And then after
Yeah,
lunch,
that's because she had asked me for this,
Yeah,
so I
no.
asked my other,
after lunch,
because I sent her to go
The only agenda item that we have
Give some to our neighbors.
is the directives.
Some aside for her.
Okay, good.
And I believe it's
So,
not gonna be a lot,
You
but
want me to
we're
cover
gonna
it or
be
you want
talking
me to
about
cover
the
it?
directives,
Just email me.
what you want technical people to do, not only, technicians, but also the legal,
He's just gonna give me his,
people that were here yesterday.
like, email him
And,
and he'll give me his personal address.
other items
I'm gonna
that
give
we
some to the nation and I'm gonna give some.
need to act on. And, we have a treat during our lunch break here.
Thank you.
Our good friend Ed here is gonna sing us a couple of songs that he composed, and so we're gonna have that treat during the lunch break. But I'm gonna turn it over to AJ here. He's gonna announce something. He's getting to be a bit of an entrepreneur, a little bit of a capitalist. Just kidding. Go ahead, AJ.
I have some of the answers to our Cree language problem. I'm a Cree language teacher, and I've got books here, a workbook, Cree language, a USB about the whole book. A USB, you can watch it on your TV or on the screen. Classroom can have a big screen and watch lesson by lesson. In Cree, I'm the speaker, handsome. And we have also a little children's coloring book. Each of them have a price. Here in this book, we have a person, and it says Utskaya, and we have an elder on this one, Gay. So that's the kind of material we have. We have a USB, a workbook, and then we also have a price list that you can make your order to. AJ here, I'm one of the directors. Okay, so those of you that are in school, you can buy workbooks for each of your students, coloring books for each of your little ones, grade 1 to 5, whatever, what grade. And you can buy a USB for each teacher that you need to teach. And we have an invoice. You can email that to us, and then we can have this. We'll say, there, that's an advertise.
Okay, hi, thank you very much, AJ. And out of the goodness of his heart, he's gonna share with his bro. We have an elder that's gonna pray for our lunch, so you can have your attention for a little while. Oh, Ed. Hey, thank you very much, Ed, for the prayer. And I believe we did find a hand drum. Magaya, mitsuk tama, go ahead, start us out, help yourself. Elders first.
Yes, thanks, Max. Go for it.
And again, volunteers, young people, who can help out the elders, the ones that
He said
are
to
not
me,
as mobile as they
he
used
said,
to be.
you know what we should do is,
You can do that for us, we
treaty
really
institute for
appreciate
Pitt
it.
treaty.
So,
And
elders,
I
we
said, yeah,
got,
there was one in
you
Saskatchewan called
see,
the,
we got,
what was it called, Saskatchewan Indian College?
you gotta have white
And
hair.
then Richie's name
My
just
friend
started
Max,
that Del Anacor. You want
still
to make
has
it
black
into a
hair, that's
university.
funny,
And Doris Reyes was telling me that
just joking,
when they set up that
Go ahead, help yourselves,
Saskatchewan, when they first started up, it was done with ceremony.
elders.
And she
Yeah,
said
you
that
got,
the design was that the classes would be taught in the communities. People didn't come into to the cities or at home. And then she said, and then Del Anacor turned it into a university, like a First Nations university. But she said what he didn't do was he didn't go back to the spiritual people and ask them if it's okay. Can I do this way? So now, like the First Nations University doesn't belong to us anymore. It belongs to the University of Regina, and they lost it.
You can just go pick it.
So we have to be very careful because yeah, we did have something, but then it got destroyed by our own people. Because the guy thought it's the same thing that they're doing at Pitt. They turned it into a university. And it's going down because y'all are not following. And so now, it used to be a really popular place. But there are all these women that come in and do that whole like, oh, we should do it. And I never people from this time, don't go there. And he said, no, I want to go there. But then he passed away. And then there's going to be
When I had gone to university there, University of Saskatchewan, I initially went to Saskatchewan SIFC,
yeah.
that's what it was called.
Yeah.
It was in the second year where they changed it to, they had moved it from where it was located on 2nd Avenue, and it was right on Skid Row almost.
Yeah.
And then they moved it to Queens, it used to be an old school, Queens School or whatever it is, Queen Street. And then that's when they, during that transition, they even changed the name. They made it at the University of Regina.
Yeah.
University of Regina.
Yeah. No, they destroyed it. The Doris Reyes told me that she used to work there. And she said he did it by ceremony. All the old people got together, did it by ceremony. And she said, but they never go out of contact. People never went back to ask the spirits, is it okay that we do it? They didn't do that. And so then it got destroyed. Anyway, I'm gonna run away.
You're gonna run away?
Run away as you drive away.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go. I have to go to Wednesday. I'll be back in Edmonton on Oh, rice pudding. Powder or something. Oh my gosh. Yes, the government would just cringe one day. Yeah. I want to try.
You are the best.
Yum. Where's my bag? Can you pass me my bag? Oh. I can't eat that. That's really bad. Hey, that lady told me her granddaughter couldn't come today. She's too busy. Why is the camera facing me?
What are treaties? Speaking of.
But
Your mother. Wiso. What is your name?
Saguasco.
Say danse.
Danza. Danza.
Your name?
Entonces, my name is Aguasco. Hey, yo, what the? Are we gonna be leaving soon? In half hour? Another piece? There you go.
Look, that's another mushroom right there.
You go to school with Bo? Huh?
Expectedly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my grandson.
I'm gonna get the bucket. My tongue feels like a Buddha.
Garbage bin looking.
Cái này là con thể spot fix, cái tao nó ngon.
Look at this giant.
Oh, you're looking at my center table. Look at this mess.
It's a fly.
Eating your cake. So I asked you that question when I said, "What are treaties?" What did you say? Secret.
Brit.
What?
Brit.
Sacred.
Brit.
Why are they sacred?
Because you're creator.
Because of Creator.
I'll go to the bathroom. Make sure no flies get my food.
Không thể có kinh tế có chỉ có chỉ sau này vô. Không thể có kinh tế có chỉ có. Romeo. Romeo. Actually, when I was